Hello everybody, this is Phil York from Phil York Knives, and today I'm in the Phil York Knives workshop and I want to do a little tutorial about how to drill the holes for a full tang knife with a tapered tang. And so here's the knife I've got today. It's a 210mm chef's knife. So this blade so far has been fully ground, hasn't got an edge on it. It's hardened, the bevels are fully ground in, the edge geometry is all final. So the only thing we've got to do on this, it's all finished hand sanded. I've got a little 800 there just to remind me that I've hand sanded it to 800 grit. I've put my etch on it, so it's pretty much all finished bar the handle and the sharpening. So what I'm going to do today is I'll show you. So this is what a tapered tang is. Let's get a bit of background there so we can see it. There it is. So that's the tang of the knife, which the tang is the part of the steel part of the knife that goes into the handle. This is a full tang knife, so this tang, this metal piece, will be visible for the full length of the handle. And you can see down here, just above the choil of the knife, it's about 2.8mm thick. And by the time I've ground this, tapered it all the way to about 0.75 of a millimeter at the tip there. So this adds balance to the knife. We want the knife to balance sort of about here, which is where you grab the knife in a pinch grip, and tapering the tang will aid that depending on the geometry of the knife and the shape, the length of the handle compared to the length of the blade and everything. And the other thing it does is add visual appeal to the knife. So when you're holding the finished knife and when you see a nice tapered tang, especially with liners either side of it, it really has an elegant look to it. So the other materials we'll be using today is the scales. So here I've got some beautiful fiddleback Tasmanian blackwood scales. They're stabilised. These came from Mark Sinclair at Sinclair Stabilised Timbers. He's in Western Australia and does a great product. Just found him recently. These are some of the first scales that I'm actually putting on a knife from him. But yeah, beautiful things, I think you'll agree. And I've pre-glued some 1mm black G10 liners to these. And the other part we've got is pins. So you can see the tang has been drilled for slightly oversized 1/8 inch holes and a 6.5 or a 1/4 inch main rod here. So I've got two small pins here, 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch in the middle. So my 1/4 inch pins, I'm using two little 1/8 inch 416 stainless steel pins, and for the main 1/4 inch pin in the middle I've got a mosaic pin, brass 416 stainless, and it's got that lovely pattern in it. I hope that comes out. So let's move over and I'll show you how I start. So here we are over at my El Cheapo drill press, and the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take all my pins and I'm going to put a bit of a rough the surface up a little bit, just to make sure later on when I glue them I get good adherence, good bond between the glue, the pin and the handle materials. I'm going to take this as just a strip of 240 grit sandpaper. Turn on the drill press. Just going to run it up and down. That's going to do two things. It's going to clean that surface up. This is extruded wire, these pins, and they've got a bit of mill scale on them, and I think you can see, so I've done half of it's nice and shiny, it's got a scratch pattern in the surface. The other half is yet to be done, so I'll do that now. And that's all there is to it. So I'll do the same to the other pins. Just a little look at that. Much shinier, scratched up, all ready for gluing. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to determine actually how much taper is on this tang. So the first thing we'll do is we'll measure the blade right at the end, just over the choil. You can see I've got 3.01 millimeters. So we'll write that down. You can see I'm in the process of doing quite a few here, so, and then we'll measure the choil right at the tip. And yeah, we're getting 0.7 millimeters there. So 3 millimeters minus 0.7 millimeters is 2.3 millimeters. That's the total taper on the tang. Half of that is 1.15 millimeters. So basically I've got a 2.3 millimeter taper, so this end here is 2.3 millimeters thinner than this thick part here right at the choil, and half of that is 1.15 millimeters. So if I drew a line of symmetry right through the center of this blade, each side has been reduced by 1.15 millimeters, and that's important when we start to drill, because what we want to do, well, come over to the drill press and I'll show you what we want to do. The first thing I always do when I start working on my handles is, once you start getting down through into the process of shaping your handles and drilling and everything, it's really easy to get confused as to which handle goes on which side and which side's the top and which side's the bottom. So I always start out by making a reference mark. So I'm going to put TL for top left on that one, and I'm going to put TR for top right on that one. And that way, as I go down the process of shaping everything, I've always got this reference to come back to, so I don't get mixed up and I don't do something arse about and ruin all the good work that I've done. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our knife and grab our first scale. This is the one with top left marked onto it, so I'm going to put the top left on the left hand side of the knife looking from the top, and put the top to the top and just turn it around. Just make sure the knife fits in there properly. Take my clamp and just clamp it right on the end. Now, when I'm drilling, if I sit that flat on my block there, the knife is not flat because the knife is sitting on that tapered tang, which makes the point of the knife a little bit higher than the butt of the knife. So what I've got to do is I've got to shim up this back area, and I shim that up by what we discovered was half of the total taper of the tang, which is 1.15 mil. The way I do that, I take these feeler gauges, you can buy these at auto shops and everything, and I pull out 1.15 mil of shim, and I put it under the base of the handle now. And because I've shimmed up this end of the knife by half of the total taper of the tang, now that knife blade, the center line of that knife, if I draw a center line along there, is perfectly parallel with the ground. So it's horizontal is what I should say. So now we can drill holes through this knife, and they're going to be horizontal, or they're going to be perpendicular, I should say, to the center line of the knife. Okay, so now we've got the handle ready and we've got the shim underneath, so that the spine of the blade is horizontal. The next thing we're going to do is drill a hole. One thing I wanted to say about drilling holes, I've got a 1/8 inch pin. If you drill a 1/8 inch hole, you basically got to hammer the pin through the hole. It's a very, very tight fit. When you're using natural materials especially, you're very likely to split the material. Not to mention, by the time you drill holes on the other side, your tolerances are just, well, they're non-existent, and it's just not good practice. You're really overstressing things. It's, if you subscribe to the if it doesn't fit, force it field of view, then it's a good solution. If not, give yourself a little bit of tolerance. Now, I'm a metric man, and in knife making, a lot of our materials comes from the US, which forces you to work in imperial. I'm not a fan of imperial at all. The one good thing about imperial with drilling is there's a whole series of drills that you can get in imperial, which to the best of my knowledge, you can't get in metric. And you can get very small increments of drill increases. And what that allows you to do is get a drill that's just a fraction over the size that you need. So in this case, I'm using a 1/8 inch pin, and a number 30 drill is just a fraction over 1/8 of an inch. So that still gives me a nice snug fit, but I can slide my pin in and out without having to resort to a hammer or overstressing the materials. So this is my number 30 drill bit, and here we go. So all I do is I move roughly into line, get myself pre-lined up. There it is. Okay, so that's the first drill hole done. What we'll do now is we'll put a pin in that, just to reference it. There it is. I'll move along. I'll do the next 1/8 inch hole. Just pre-align. There we go. Quite right. That's it. I'll just change over and we'll do the 1/4 inch hole.